What are some examples of situations teachers might find themselves in where trauma-informed instruction could help?
Well, let me tell you about a 7-year-old student who's living in a suburban classroom. He has withstood severe trauma in the form of physical and mental abuse from his father, and also witnessing that same abuse happening to his mom. Now, recently, this kiddo's dad also passed away from a heart attack. So while he's not currently going through the abuse, he has it in his mind, as well as the fresh wound of losing a parental figure. Um, so he has also been labeled within the school as a behavior challenge. So like, you know how you kind of talk about your students, just trying to get like different perspectives from other teachers, just trying to get some help. Like, how can I do better for this student? And so despite the fact that his teachers truly care about him and want what is best for him, he has been subconsciously labeled a behavior challenge. And so, even though it's never been said in front of him, it's never even been said out loud, it's been implied, and it's affected his sense of self worth, especially inside schools. So he comes to school one day to find that his teacher is not going to be able to be there. And in her place is the student teacher. Now, he's kind of familiar with the student teacher. They worked together for a couple weeks now, but he can sense that the student teacher is nervous around him. So when he sees that his teacher's not in the room, he's already triggered a little bit. And you can tell because he slams his breakfast down on the table. And so the student teacher takes the initiative at this point, having also talked with the teacher prior to the teacher's absence to get some advice. And she sits down to have a conversation with the student before his peers enter the classroom. And she's like, hey, I know this is unusual, and I want you to know that your teacher has told me that it's completely fine if you want to tell me a message you want me to give her, or even for you to call her using my phone. You can come to me during your morning recess, your lunch, or your afternoon recess. Those are all great times if you want me to get a message to her. And for those of you who are worried about giving your phone number to a substitute or giving it to a student, there are apps out there that protect your personal information. You can contact your students using it, but you can also have complete control of turning it off, and it won't ring, but you'll still get your normal phone calls. So you still have the chance to disengage from work. Um, so the student teacher has already given that student a tool to kind of embrace, because students who have traumatic backgrounds don't do well when there's not predictability. They don't do well if there's a change in the routine unless they are given certain supports. So by providing him with that support, the student teacher and teacher have already done everything that they can to give him the tools he needs. So later that day, he becomes obviously agitated due to an unpreferred activity he's asked to do. And the teacher can like visibly see him about to flip his lid. And so, what can the student teacher do at that point to de escalate the situation? Well, Jessica Minahan states in trauma informed teaching strategies, the teacher is 50% of every interaction with the student. By changing the way we give a direction or respond, we can reduce problematic behaviors. So, um, like when the student teacher starts to see him flipping his lid, the student teacher could come up to him and say, hey, I noticed that you have started pinching yourself. Would you like to go to the peace corner? Well, you're providing the student at that moment an out. You're providing them the chance to get away from his anxiety or from his anger or whatever strong emotion he's feeling, and just cool off without causing a scene. with his peers. And so that in itself could be enough to save the day, quote unquote, um, from preventing another traumatic event in this poor traumatized student's life, as well as traumatizing his peers. Um, but let's say that's not enough. Let's say the student refuses that option and continues to dysregulate. Well, the student teacher can at that point give another chance, just give them another out, because you can't reason with a student who's slipping their lid, as we know. So by giving that student another out by saying, hey, do you want to go get a drink of water right now? And we can talk about this when you get back. You're giving them a chance to like you showing them that you trust them, and you're giving them a chance to re-regulate privately. And so at that point, if the student chooses to go get a drink of water, the student teacher could also call the principal or the counselor or whoever her backup is and ask for some support with the student. Um, totally without the student knowing, and just like providing an additional level of support. Now, let's say that's not enough. The student is so upset at this point that he cannot even like identify an out when it's given to him. So he just flat out refuses. Well, the viable option left for the student teacher is a room clear. Now, some schools have done this really cool thing where they have like different loop-de-loops or different like calls to actions in the hallway for just some physical activity. Students are given this as a break option, as a reward, just whatever, just to get the wiggles out, you know. And so by telling her students, hey, go in the hallway and do this workout routine, and if you finish, do it again, like that just gets them out of the classroom, provides some privacy for the de-escalated student while also ensuring that the students aren't freaked out by his behavior. And the student teacher at that point can start using some of her de-escalation strategies to try and calm the student down. She has taken the danger away by taking the peers out of the room, and she is now going to provide very simple, concise instructions to the student so that way he can comprehend what she's saying. Because as we all know, when you flip your lid, you lose a lot of your comprehension. Your ability to think rationally is just out the window. So by repetitively saying, when you are calm, I will know because you will be in the peace corner, or put the chair down, find a safe place, sit down, and breathe. Now, it's very important. The tone of voice that you use at this point is essential, because if you use a negative or a stern voice, you're going to make the child feel like they're out of control still, or like you're trying to control them. Don't use a positive voice. We don't want them to think that this is a positive interaction. We want to avoid this ever happening again. So using that neutral voice kind of helps the student and yourself. Once the student has calmed down and is in that position that you instructed, you can start using I statements to summarize what you observe. Like, I noticed when I asked you to do this activity, you became upset. And I think you might be upset because I saw you pick up a chair. Do you want to tell me if I'm missing something? Or just asking for their perspective will allow them to kind of give you advice, maybe on how to avoid that situation or how to handle that situation maybe a little better in the future if for some reason it happens again. Now, the child's not off the hook. They're not going to walk away from this happening without something happening, like a consequence. But now is not the time to enforce that consequence. Now is relationship building. Okay, so at this point, all the student teacher is doing is talking with them, remaining calm, um, encouraging the student to stay calm. And once they have made it clear that they can have a conversation with you, then you can invite the other students back into the classroom and thank them for their patience and provide them with a calming activity such as a guided meditation, a calm go noodle, a coloring page, anything to get them back into that unheightened state.